FM. I am happy to have you here listening to Street Corner Resources Live. I'm your host, Aisha Sekou. And Rodney said that I kind of messed up on his introduction, so we're going to get it straight because that's important. He is the Assistant Chief Executive Officer of the Chief of Patrol. He said it sounded like I said parole, and I probably did. It's Monday morning. But Chief Executive Officer of the Chief of Parole. I got it right, Rodney?
You said parole again, but it's
okay. Patrol. I said it again.
Monday morning.
It's Monday morning. And so, I'm really glad to have you here. There's a lot to talk about. I know you said, will you be able to fill this time? But I think that you will. That we have a number of things. One, tell us what your position is. You've been moving around a heck of a lot.
Yes, ma'am.
You came, I remember when I first met you was at the 28.
Yep.
Lots of violence was going on.
We had some concerns.
Major. You say it easy.
Yeah.
But it was crazy.
Yeah, it was tough.
Right?
Tough
and you moved into the 32nd precinct as the commander there.
Yes, ma'am.
And one of the things that I'm proud of is that we were able to deal with the community, some of us who did anti-violence work, along with the support on the streets of certain officers, were able to deal with some of the issues that were kind of like taking over our community at that time, that had to do with violence with sets and crews and all of that.
Well, I actually believe that the reason for my success as a commanding officer 2A and 3-2 was because I had a great relationship with the community.
Oh, absolutely.
We worked together. We did a lot of good things regarding trying to build relationships, and at the end of the day, we were able to get violence down, and it was a great time between the 2A and the 3-2, being able to walk away and say, hey, listen, crime is down, relationships are better. We put some good things together.
Absolutely. So tell us a little more. I just wanted people to get some background on you. So when you left the 32nd Precinct Command, right? When you left there, you went to Staten Island.
No, I went to Internal Affairs for...
Oh, right. For a short time.
Which I learned a little bit about that part of the job, which I never had experienced. Good learning experience there. And then after that, they sent me out to Staten Island to work with...
that was after the death of Eric Garner.
I went out there and I worked with the Borough Commander, Ed Del Torre, and we did some great things out there, trying to heal some of the relationships that were going on out in Staten Island. Then I was given the opportunity to be the executive officer of Brooklyn North.
Right.
I did most of my career out there, and I worked with the Borough Commander, Jeff Mandry, who to me is one of the best executives on the job. He really puts his foot forward regarding making sure we have a great relationship with the community that we serve. And then after that,
I just want to, if I may, ask you about being out in Staten Island.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know that was not the easiest time, right? Like, I remember I ran into you during the time that there was a march out in Staten Island, and it seemed like the community, though, received you very well.
Yes.
Right? That they were pretty comfortable with you. What was it like trying to manage the police-community relationship after that?
It was tough. There was a little bit of a divide amongst the two identities. But I think what healed it was a lot of dialogue, a lot of sitting down with the North Shore of Staten Island and hearing what they had to say and trying to put things in place to make things better, so that we don't have any more negative experiences in the future. So it was a lesson for me that I will never forget. I never worked in Staten Island before. The only thing I know about Staten Island is you have to go through it to get to Jersey.
Right.
But being out there, you really learn. That's a great borough.
Right.
It really is a great borough, and there's some work that still needs to be done. But they love their cops out there.
Right.
They love their cops.
So the relationships are improving.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So now I want to come up to speed because we want to talk about neighborhood policing and community policing and the difference between that.
Yes.
But I want you to tell us how, after you left Staten Island,
After I left Staten Island, I became the executive officer of Brooklyn North. I did that for maybe about a year, and then I was given an opportunity to be the chief of detectives for Brooklyn North, which I oversaw not only the detective squads but also narcotics and gang, and we really did some good work.
So I thought that you were working with gangs
Yes, ma'am.
in some way. Tell us a little bit about that, about the whole gang piece. What was that like? What are some of the concerns that still prevail where gangs are concerned in New York City?
Well, the gangs, unfortunately, are poison. They're poison in our community, and one of the things that the NYPD is geared to do is called precision policing. And what we're doing is we're going after the people that are really problematic in the street, the ones that are the hierarchy in these gangs or territorial crews, and we're finding ways to get some type of charge against them to get them off the street, because those are the ones who are really causing the problems in our community. It's a very small percentage, but if we could do that precision policing and go after the right individuals, we'll definitely make the streets safer in New York.
So now your job is a little different,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And it's to what?
I'm
Neighborhood
yes,
policing.
ma'am.
How is that different from community policing?
It's different because the neighborhood policing has three different elements to it, or three different positions. There's somebody called the NCO. He's the neighborhood coordination officer. Then there's the steady sectors, and then there's the response orders. But I'm going to just
Break it down, because I really want. I mean, this is why we're having this conversation, to talk about neighborhood policing. People are a little confused because they're saying, well, what happened to the whole community policing thing? And it seemed like that didn't quite stick. It didn't quite work. So I want to be clear for our audience. What's the difference? What are the steps? What's the expectation?
Right. Well, the community police officer was pretty much, they had a certain range of a couple of blocks that they covered, and their job was pretty much to know the community. In contrast to this neighborhood coordination officer, he's assigned to a certain area or sector every single day. He's not being removed and being asked to sit in the hospital or guard a prisoner. He's not sitting on a DOA. He's not being sent to the Trump detail or anything of that nature. His job is to be a problem solver in the area that he covers on a daily basis. And when you do that, you get to understand the community that you're serving.
Of course, I remember that's like back in the day, the beat cop.
But it's not. But the only thing, the difference between a beat cop and these officers are asked to also fight crime.
Okay.
They're out there to take care of quality of life concerns.
Okay.
And
when you say quality of life concerns, for those that are listening that don't know what that is, what is a quality of life concern? These officers handle that. What is that?
It could be a host of different things. It could be anywhere from a lot of unnecessary noise to people walking their pit bull off a leash, to trash concerns and leaving garbage in the hallways and things of that nature. It's things that are on a small low-level things, where they're asked to, hey, who's here going to solve people leaving garbage in front of my house? Or who's here going to help me regarding the 311 calls that are coming in regarding noise from a neighbor or things like that? And they're not out to produce activity. They're out there to solve the problem. And that's a little bit different methodology regarding how.
So it's not to make, when you say to produce activity, not to make an arrest.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So this is looking at what the issue is and just trying to figure out, okay, how do we keep this from becoming something bigger?
They're mediating the small things. Unfortunately, somebody that may be smoking marijuana in the hallway. It's not for everybody to have to smell that odor.
Exactly.
And they're there to find a way to resolve those little quality of life concerns. So
Right.
there's a host of them, unfortunately, but everything doesn't have to result in, say, some type of summons or arrest. Now they're doing a lot of mediation to resolve these problems.
Okay, so in the instance that, because these kinds of things, the things that you're talking about, that the NCOs are responsible for, these are behaviors or incidences that are very common in the West Harlem community, right?
Yes, ma'am.
People smoking weed in hallways, people having children playing in the hallway, and there are people coming in and out, those kinds of things. And then the factor of noise on a Sunday morning. Somebody's still hanging out from Saturday night and has the music blasting loud. Seniors can't sleep.
Even neighbor disputes.
Right.
Sometimes neighbors can't get along because one person's may be doing some type of construction in their house, or whatever it may be. It may not be malicious.
Right.
But the NCO will find a way to do a mediation amongst the two and resolve the problem.
Right.
That's the CPOP cop back in the day wasn't doing that.
Right.
This neighborhood coordination officer is asked to do that, and it's really
So
paying
they're
off.
trained
Yes, ma'am.
to do these kinds of mediations.
Every NCO goes to a training prior.
Tell us
to
about the training.
Okay.
Tell us,
Well,
what kinds of things do they do in the training that prepares them to be in the community in this way?
Well, the
'Cause
first.
this is a little unique.
Oh no, and it's very powerful. The first type of training we teach them is we want them to become investigators. We want them to be able to solve crimes and be able to put pieces together regarding patterns and things of that nature. So every NCO goes to a what's called a criminal investigation course. The only ones that go to that course are New York City detectives. We're asking these NCOs to now go to this training.
And why?
Because we want them to learn how to solve crime. And the most important thing is, we want to build relationships, but it's all for naught if violence is still occurring. So we have to make sure these neighborhood coordination officers are able to fight crime and be able to find little pieces of things that are going on, put them together to help them become a little bit more of a better crime fighter at the end of the day. Then we send them to a neighborhood NCO training where they learn different mediation, they learn how to work with different agencies, and it's really helping out because we're giving the cops the tools to figure out how to resolve problems instead of just saying, okay, pull out the handcuffs and lock somebody up. Now they're doing different types of mediation, which is really paying off in the long run.
Right. I know that, Street Corner Resources, we often get calls because of relationships we have built over the years. I think there was a 14-year-old kid that was throwing rocks at cars, and I remember an officer, and this was not long ago, called and said, "We need you to talk to this kid. Can you, and is there a place for you to do something with this kid?" Because they didn't want to make the arrest, right?
And that's what we're doing now. We're working with the different organizations to intervene, to help the youth, the senior citizens, the individuals that maybe even have trouble getting a job, whatever the case may be. We're kind of the Google cop. You have the cop that's able to resolve any problem that you may have in the area that they cover, that are there on a daily basis. And one of the things I really love about the program is you're seeing intimacy with the community and the cops. And when I was a commanding officer up here, that was one of the biggest complaints. Inspector Harrison, we don't know our cops.
I remember that. We caught a lot of hell just being on the street, and people were saying, but we don't know these officers.
Yes, ma'am.
And the officers would come and do their work, and people in the community had a feeling about that, right? Because there was no, I'm not going to say with every officer, there were some who had been in the community for a long time. When I think of community affairs officers, right? I always think of Collado and Pena.
The best in the game, man.
Right,
And
everybody knows them. They know the community. But I think we came upon a period of time where, and you said, like you said, during your command and even before, where officers were coming into the community and there was no real introduction of them to the community, no real relationship.
Absolutely.
Although years before that, there were officers, and I can call them all by name: Chappelle, Vinnie Chappelle, first and last name,
Yeah.
Taylor. There was another Rodney Harrison,
Yeah.
and we knew these officers. I mean, my daughter knew them when she was young. She's a grown woman now with her own children, but I could say to them, watch out for my kid.
Right.
You know, she's coming from karate at 6 o'clock. It's starting to get dark. If you see her, make sure she gets home all right. But that was how we knew the officers in our area. Are we going to see that more with neighborhood policing, where parents and educators and community members know who these officers are?
They're not only going to know the officers, they're going to have access to them. Remember, now every single police officer has their own cell phone, so they're giving out the numbers, and everybody has their own email address.
Right.
So now it's just not seeing them while they're working.
Right.
You can speak to them while they're off as well, to resolve a condition or concern that may be going on real time. So these are the things that we've never done before.
Right.
You know, sometimes, unfortunately, in any agency, once you sign out, it's all over. Now these NCOs are asked to keep their phone on 24 hours a day, answer calls, and if they're unable to handle it, pass the information on to the steady sectors that are working as well.
I want to give our listening audience, if folks want to call in, our telephone number here is 212-650-6903. 212-650-6903. We're talking about community policing, and you have an opportunity to chime in, to use your voice, and ask the question that you may have an interest in having an answer for. I know that many folks are new to this whole thing, not community policing, neighborhood policing. I had to get used to that. So because in the past, you know, everybody was talking about community engagement, community policing, but now it's neighborhood policing.
Neighborhood policing. It started in mid-2015. We piloted it in the Rockaways and in Washington Heights, and now out of the 77 precincts, it's in 39 commands, and it's in the 3-2,
Right.
the 2-8, the 3-0, the 3-3, and the 3-4.
Okay.
So it's up
So
there in
how
most of the
many
commands. And the
officers?
2-3, by the way.
How many officers? Is this just like 1 or 2 officers per precinct? You know, what's the police community ratio, if there is one, or is it just, you know, an appointed officer?
Well, the way we designed it is each precinct has been historically, the precincts used to have 12 to 14, maybe even 15 sectors in it. Now what we did was we chopped the precinct into either 3, 4, or 5 sectors, depending on the size of the command. And each sector has what's called 2 neighborhood coordination officers assigned to it, with a team of steady sectors that work in that area on a daily basis. So you'll have 4 cops, steady sectors, assigned to a certain area on the midnight.
What is steady sector?
That's a great question.
I mean, I just like for the audience, I'm acting
like
I'm there.
No,
Yes.
that's a great question. Steady sectors are the cops who are in the patrol cars that are handling the 911 jobs. Those cops also are assigned to the same area every single day. So, with that being said, just imagine the knowledge that they have if you have to go to that same domestic violence job or that same emotionally disturbed person or whatever the case may be. They'll be able to know how to deal with that family or that individual because they dealt with them in the past, because they're working in the same area every single day. We're also asking these officers that are assigned to these patrol cars to spend 33% of their command to get to know the community. And you said these are things that we've never done before. These are things that we've never asked the cops to get out the car and get to know the community.
Right.
Stop what you're doing. Don't go from job to job. Spend some time off the radio and go out there and meet the merchants, meet the religious leaders.
And outside the patrol car.
Outside the patrol car, yes, ma'am.
Because most of the time, in the past, people would see these officers, but they'd be sitting in a car.
Sitting in a car, driving by,
Having
not
coffee.
engaging, having coffee. Now we're holding them accountable to get that uncommitted time to work with the community,
Right.
as well as work with their neighborhood coordination officer that we call the quarterback of the sector or the area of concern that they cover.
Right. So now, what response are you getting back from the community in regards to these neighborhood officers that are now taking this different role? You know, I know that, you know, some have an eyebrow up, like, why is this officer, like, trying to smile and talk with me and have a conversation, and they haven't been doing this before. It's new to the community, right?
Well,
what responses are you getting from the community?
Well, one of the best ways to identify if something is being perceived is have focus groups.
Right.
And since I've been in that position as the XO, Chief of Patrol, I've had several focus groups with community members, not just in Harlem,
Right.
but through all out the city, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Staten Island.
Okay.
And I'm bringing residents in.
Okay.
And I'm asking them, listen, tell me what do you think about the neighborhood policing? And they love our new philosophy.
Okay.
The only concern that I do have is they know who their neighborhood coordination officer is. We have to push them also knowing the steady sectors as well, because they got to know everybody that's working in that area on a day-to-day basis. So the NCOs are out there. We just got to help sell the steady sectors that they're part of that team as well.
Right.
So it's 2 NCOs and 12 steady sector cops assigned to a certain area, and we have to make sure that everybody knows that whole.
So
that
the
whole
steady
team.
sector cops are cops that stay in the neighborhood as well?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanna
Stay
make sure
in
that-
the same area. We'll
The
say
same area.
which we call the sector, but for argument's sake, we'll say the area that they cover.
Right.
They're assigned there every single day.
To a specific,
To a specific area.
every day.
They know everybody now.
Okay.
Remember, just imagine.
So the whole idea is developing the relationships in
Intimacy,
particular
yes.
areas to kind of keep small crimes down
Yes.
and kind of watch what's going on in the community
And as well as build relationships.
and build
So
relationships.
if they're going to combat crime, their job is to make sure that they combat the crime,
Right.
as well as solve problems,
Right.
be it minor or major,
Okay.
as well as develop relationships.
Okay.
It's let me tell you something.
And you
It's
talked
taken
about,
off.
you know, you said it's taken
It's
off.
taken off.
So you talked about quality of life issues, right? That people can. I know that there was, I think it was an email set up where people can actually call in for small issues, like, you know, every Saturday night there's this loud music. I know people call us sometimes and say things like, you know, there's this party and it's a whole bunch of kids and we're concerned whether or not there's an adult there. You know, those kinds of things. Those are the things that people can still,
You can still
email
do that.
about.
You can still do that. You can still go on the call 301, or I believe there's even an app, 301 app that you can go on. And I don't want to take it away from that philosophy because it really helps out. But you also have the access to the cops that are assigned to your area. Call them on their phone, text them, email them, whatever you
well,
gotta
you know,
do.
most people
You
are saying, well, that's like snitching, right? And you know, folks, we have to deal with that in our community because snitching is a big issue and it has a big stigma attached to it. But people also want their community to be safe. So at the same time, somebody has to identify that something is going on that's creating a problem before the problem gets bigger. And so how are people who need to report that there is a party going on with little kids and no adult report that without being suspect of being some kind of snitch, right?
They're not going to be considered snitches, and the information that the officers take in stays with the officers. They're not going to go and say, hey, I got this phone call from your neighbor. That's the wrong way of doing police work. So any information we get, we take it and we act on it, but we don't advise anybody where we got that information from, because we understand that that's a major concern in our minority community.
Well, and one of the things that we know is that in order to improve the community, we have to address issues at some point,
Absolutely.
which is kind of a balancing act. Like what do you deal with first, and how do you deal with it? I think one of the things that a lot of people don't know about is that there is a precinct council meeting
Yes.
of their community precinct once a month that folks can go to and kind of hear what's going on. Because some of the things I think that are happening in communities, people may assume that are not being addressed, or they're not talking to the community, and maybe some things are happening. It's just that folks don't know. So the precinct council meeting is a place where people can find out what's going on. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. Each precinct has once a month a community council meetings. I believe they don't have it during the summer months of July and August. So I think it's very helpful that if you do have a concern that you attend these meetings. Actually, you don't even have to wait till you have a concern. You should just go to get updates regarding what's going on in your community. But Aisha, I want to speak a little bit more that these neighborhood coordination officers and the area that they cover, they are now starting to have their own what's called safety summits. And what they're doing is they're doing it with the community that they cover, the area that they cover, and they're having their own mini community council meetings. And we're asking the community to identify who your NCO is and ask them to come down.
Like to block association meetings
absolute
and that kind
block
of thing?
association meeting, whatever venue you may have, be it come speak to the congregation at church, be it come to your learning facility, whatever the case may be, come to your senior citizens home, talk about crime prevention strategies. They're having their own little community council meetings within the areas that they cover.
Right.
Because once again, is what may be happening on one side of town
May not
be happening on another
right.
side of town.
Okay.
So it's important that each NCO has their own meetings. So they're putting together their own safety summits and talking to the community that they're working with regarding things that are, say, problematic.
How do people make that happen? You know, because folks say, well, yeah, well, who do I call to make that happen? Because sometimes you call the precinct and they'll say, well, if it's not an emergency, then you got to call back. And so who do they contact to say, we would like, for example, the NCOs to come to the senior center and talk about how seniors are being robbed and push-ins, and they're using their identities and that kind of thing. Who can do that? How do they create that to happen?
There's different ways.
Dialogue.
There's different ways. They could either one go to the precinct that of concern. They go to the community council meetings because all the NCOs are at the community council meeting. We also now have Facebook up in a lot of the different precincts. Not in every command, but it's getting there, where you'll be able to go on the Facebook and see what officer is assigned to your area with his or her contact information and email address. And then you can sit there and say, hey, Officer Harrison, we're having a meeting over here on such and such a stage. Could you find time to come? And either the NCO could come or the steady sectors could come as well and talk about issues or concerns that are going on in the area. So it's there's different ways of identifying these neighborhood coordination officers and get them to attend meetings that you may be putting in place.
So I want to ask you about something, because there are folks who have complained that when they do go to the precinct to express a concern or do a report or make a request in terms of an officer coming to a meeting or something like that, that they're often greeted by a police outside the precinct with gates, those I forgot what you call them, those bars that you use during the parades and things like that, and they're not always allowed in. Can you speak to what's going on that not so many community members are allowed in the precinct, and there's these barricades, that's the word, I'm sorry.
Barriers.
Right, these barriers. So what's going on that we're seeing that in front of certain precincts? I know the 3-2 has it, the 2-8 has it, and particularly the concern came from at least 2 community members about the 2-8 and these barricades, and I think I heard one complain about it at the 3-2. What's the purpose of that, and why doesn't the community have direct access to the precinct?
Well, the first and foremost, the precinct is a safe haven. You know, it's something that anybody could come in to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right. That's the thinking.
That's the thinking.
Right. Because that's how it used to be. You know, I used to walk in.
And it still is.
Right.
Unfortunately, because of the day and age of terrorism that we live in, and some people have had attacks on police officers, we have to, unfortunately, do certain measures to protect the safety of the officers. And if it has to be, put up barriers on the outside to make sure that nobody comes in and swings an axe at a cop or tries to do anything harmful to police officers. I'm sure that the community can understand the dangers that we're faced in right now.
Yeah, because, you know, folks were like, well, why can't we, it's our precinct, we're taxpayers, why can't we just walk in the precinct? And oftentimes people are asked, well, what's your concern? And I guess if it's at the discretion of the officer on the outside, whether or not that person gets to make a complaint about whatever it is.
And first of all, anybody can come in and make a complaint. We just have to make sure we inquire why they're here first. It's not. It should never be contentious. It should always be somewhat opening and welcoming. So just because you're being asked why you're here doesn't mean that you can't come in and make a report. We just have to make sure we protect the police officers that keep the community safe.
Okay, so on behalf of the community, I'm going to say that has not been the case. People have had stolen bikes and just not necessarily big incidents, but small things that they wanted to complain about or make a report on, and they were turned away. So I just want to register that because my listening audience will say, why didn't you just tell him that this is what happened? So they're not feeling like it's a friendly and welcoming exchange when the officer is outside the precinct, the barricades are there, and you're not allowed in to make a complaint.
Well, once again, I don't know the logistics behind what happened with that incident.
Exactly.
There's sometimes, unfortunately, there's maybe more reasons behind it that we may not know about. So I wish I could help that person out to kind of maybe break down what might have happened.
Right.
So, are there going to be, unfortunately, some mistakes that may happen? Of course there is. We're the police department. We're not perfect, but we do the best we can to make sure we serve the community the best we can.
Right. So, I'm thinking about some of these things in terms of with the NCOs and neighborhood policing, that we have to look at the areas that, other than just the police engaging the community, to make sure that the community feels welcome when they do need to come to the precinct. And I guess for me, I think it's a great thing that relationships are being developed outside of the precinct.
Absolutely.
I just feel like when people come in, and I've had this happen to me too, so I'm just registering even my own complaint, right? Where I went to the precinct to inquire about a young person and was not let in. It was like, and this was recently. I didn't get a chance to talk to the commander here, but it was just a very strange feeling, a precinct that I've always been able to come into, and it was like, you can't come in.
Right.
Literally, that's what was said. Now, I don't know what was going on inside, like you said, but I just want to make sure that as we are developing relationships in the community, which I think is a great thing. I think that people, I mean, it was great for me when my daughter was growing up, and to know the officers in the community, to know that they, developed relationships with people at the Y and places like that where most of the kids were gathering. I felt like they were safe. And I felt like if I needed to make a phone call to one of them, I could, and just kind of check on what was going on or an incident. I just want to make sure equally as well, we still have that same relationship inside the precinct.
Well, I will say this, and that's, I understand your concern. And once again, as I apologize, I wish I had more information regarding that particular incident. But, just having the availability to call your cop anytime you need to is phenomenal. And I always use this analogy, so just bear with me. People that might have heard this before. If you ever have like an ailment, you have your own personal doctor. If you have a toothache or something wrong with your mouth, you have your own personal dentist. You don't go see a different doctor every single time. You don't see a different dentist. You go to your same dentist. Now you have your own professional police officer, and you have access to them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're there to your beck and call. These are the things that the NYPD is really, really taking great pride and strides to say, hey, listen, we're going to work with the community. We're going to make this work.
Right. Okay. So we got to have you back. Our time is just about up, and tell folks again your title, because I screwed it up twice.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to get my title.
And the bad thing is, I'm so used to saying Rodney. I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad that we have that kind of relationship, and we built that relationship over time. But I do want people to know your current title, and again what you do, and if there's a need to make contact where neighborhood policing is concerned, how do they do that?
Well, first of all, Aisha, I would like to also give out my contact information, because the truth of the matter is this: in order for me to make this new philosophy work, it's important that I hear ideas and suggestions from people in the street. So once again, my name is Assistant Chief Rodney Harrison. I am the Executive Officer of the Chief of Patrol, and my contact information is 646-208-6758, and my email address is rodney.harrison@nypd.org. rodney.harrison@nypd.org.
So, Rodney, thank you so much. We appreciate you in our community, but I'd love to have you back. So let's begin to kind of turn the wheel around this conversation. Maybe next month come back and kind of update us, because we know the spring is coming. Lots of things that happen when the spring and summer comes, so we want to get in front of some things and also tell people about some ways to prevent some things from happening, and how they can get more involved.
I love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Peace and blessings. Have a great day, family. Continue to do things in a great way, and be mindful even if the mind is full. Next up is Dr. Dickerson. Peace and blessings.